Everyone, my name is Tim Brown. Welcome back to Apple Podcast, the podcast that makes a personal connection to everything Apple. Today, I want to review another video editor for iOS. It's called VideoLeap by Lightricks. You may be familiar with Lightricks. They've also designed Enlight, the photo editor, as well as Facetune. So the app developers are pretty talented, and this app really is no exception in terms of the quality. I'm going to examine the pros as well as some cons about the app and let you decide what you think of it. You're looking at the basic interface here. When you first open the app, and I'm going to go ahead and hit this plus symbol, and as you can see here, you have access to some stock images as well as your camera roll. I'm going to go ahead and bring in a base layer here, and this is going to be the layer that I'm going to work with on my timeline. You can adjust format. So here I brought in a square image, so I'm going to go to format and then change my aspect ratio to 1:1, so that it conforms to the format that I want to use. And as you can see here along the timeline here, you can actually use two fingers and pinch and zoom in order to zoom into your content in case you want to get a closer look, or you can expand it. This comes in handy when you want to start fine-tuning the placement of your content. Another thing that's really cool is you can add layers, and you add layers by selecting the mixer icon. So by selecting the mixer icon, I can bring in more content. So I'm going to bring in several layers. The first layer I'm going to bring in is this dock that I cut out with another app, and I'm going to go ahead and resize it and reposition it here in the bottom left corner. I'm going to go back to Mixer and bring in some more images. I have a nice egret flying in the air that I want to add somewhere up here near the sky. And then finally, I'm going to go ahead and bring in another layer, a model with a blue background. I did this on purpose because I want to be able to demonstrate how the CHROMA key feature works with this app. So I have several layers here. Now, one thing you can do is you can control how you want the layers to appear by going to Arrange. And I have 3 layers here, so I have 3 options, 1, 2, 3. As I toggle back and forth, I can make my model, for example, the first layer, the second layer, or the third layer. That is the layer that is on top of all the other 2 layers. So it's nice being able to have this flexibility, and this is what I want to do for the moment. I do have this blue screen though, which is kind of messing everything up. So I want to go ahead and get rid of this screen, and I'm going to do that by using the CHROMA key feature or CHROMA tab down below. So by selecting the CHROMA tab, I can go in and actually pull out color from my picture. In this case, the red dot that you see here on screen is on top of the model, but that's not where I want the color to be removed. I want the color to be removed outside her. So when I move that red dot outside her, I then remove that color that's around her. And this is the effect I want. So this is really cool. This you can use with video as well as photos, and that's really probably one of the key features that makes this app so special. Another thing that makes this app very special is the ability to add keyframes and animate your content. So if you look down below in the bottom right corner, there's a little tiny triangle with a plus symbol. When you select that, you can add a keyframe. You'll notice that right after you add a keyframe, the option is then to minus it out. So if I select it once again, I can remove it. So the plus symbol means that you can add it, the minus symbol means that you can remove it. But I'm going to go ahead and leave that keyframe there. And I'm going to scroll through my timeline. Near the very end, I'm going to add another keyframe, and at this point I want the image to do something different. And you can have it rescale to a different size or reposition it to another section of your project. In this case, I'm just going to rescale the image, so now that she can zoom in as the video progresses. Now I've also noticed too that my dock is not flush to the bottom, and you may be wondering, well, how am I going to do that? I can't see the layer. Well, what's really convenient about how this app is designed is that you can actually toggle back and forth between layers if they happen to appear at the same location on the timeline. So here I'm just tapping the different layers here, and as you can see, they're all in the same location, but I can toggle back and forth until I decide which layer I want to work on. So in this case, I want to work on the layer that has the dock. And with that layer selected, I can now move and reposition where I want it to go. But let's go ahead and add another mixer layer because I want to demonstrate blends. In this case, I'm going to go to the stock images, and I'm going to bring in this little light leak effect. And I want this to go over my image. Now, as you can see, it's covering everything. But I can make adjustments. Obviously, I can control how I want to arrange my layers, but what I want to demonstrate here is the blending mode. So by selecting blending, I can choose different overlay effects until I get the kind of effect that I want. I'm just going to scroll through all the options here. I like hard light in this instance. Now what's interesting too is that you can also control how much of that effect you want to add. So I'm going to kind of leave it like that. Now I really like the effect, but I don't like the effect over the model, and this is where you can go in and toggle your layers again. So if I go back to the model layer and then scroll over to arrange, you can see that she's now positioned as the 3rd layer, but if I move her over one more time, she's now in the 4th layer, or the very top layer, and she's not affected by that light leak effect, which I kind of like. What's nice about the app is that you can also add text to your projects as well. Really cool option to have. Just double tap, and I'm just going to add, say, fashion. Okay. And with that text layer selected, I now have options to also control the type of font that I want to use, as well as the color, the opacity, and so forth. Like all the other layers, you can pinch and zoom and resize it to whatever you want it to be. You can animate text just like you can animate images. So in this case, for example, if I wanted to, let's just say I want the text to fade out as the slideshow progresses, I'm going to go ahead and go to my keyframes. Put one keyframe at the beginning, and as it gets toward the end of the timeline, I'm going to go ahead and add another keyframe. In this instance, though, I'm going to reduce the opacity. So as the timeline progresses, the image disappears. So let's go ahead and play that back so you can kind of get a sense of what that looks like. Pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, there's tons of customizations. Hey, you can even add audio to your projects as well. You can go to your iTunes library, and as you can see here, it also appears as another layer. But you don't need to get stressed out. Once again, you can just toggle back and forth when you want to access the other layers. Whenever a layer is selected, it brings up a unique set of controls for that particular layer. So in this case, this is an audio track or a music track, and here I actually have different controls. I can control the volume level here. I can go to the equalizer and increase the bass if I want to do that. Yeah, pretty cool option to have for a mobile app. The fact that you can have this kind of control is pretty awesome. You can likewise control when you want certain clips to come in. So here I'm just pinching and zooming or pressing down on the file and then moving it manually with my hand. I can move it to any place on the timeline that I want. Now, with an app like this, you may be wondering, are there any downsides? Well, there are a few. I wouldn't say they're downsides. There are things that developers can easily improve upon. For example, let's go with the formatting of your project. So here I purposely chose a square format, but if I go back to format and I just say, you know, I really want to post this to YouTube, but a square video, it's not going to really work on YouTube. I want a 16:9 video. Well, guess what? I can't do that because the bottom layer cannot be adjusted in the same way that the mixer layers can. I'm pretty much stuck with what I have here. And that's a big limitation for this app. Another limitation is the inability to add voiceovers. If you're a podcaster like me and you want to be able to add narration to your projects, that's something you pretty much need to have if you're going to become a pretty useful video editor. And right now, it's just not quite there yet. The one thing that I'm really discouraged about is the pricing model. It's just, to me, obscene to have to pay these kind of prices for apps. And it's totally up to you. I mean, this is my Apple podcast. You know, I present my point of view. I think that every consumer is going to have to make these decisions on their own. But for me, if I'm paying for iCloud Drive, OneDrive, Microsoft, music streaming, video streaming, I'm already spending a ton of money, and really my wallet is being taxed. If I have to pay a subscription fee for every app that I use on my mobile device, and believe me, I have a lot of apps, I will be sent to the poorhouse and my wife will probably divorce me. Now, the reality is, app subscriptions are probably here to stay. Over a year and a half ago, Vlad Savov, in this article that I'm going to share with you here, app subscriptions were always inevitable, really kind of spells it out. I'm just going to quote him directly. Apple is one of those rare few companies that can take an ongoing evolution and focus and distill it into a revolutionary change. That's the immodest thinking behind the company's ambitious Subscriptions 2.0 plan for the App Store, which aims to convert iOS users from one-off app purchasers into loyal subscribers. It's nothing new in and of itself, but Apple's wholehearted embrace validates and underlines it. Subscriptions are going to play a huge role in the future of software. Where you position yourself in this new ecosphere is up to you. Now, I wouldn't feel totally helpless. As a consumer, you do have choices, and there are actually other apps available. I just reviewed an app called LumaFusion, which is arguably a much better video editor. That is, if you want to start editing video on a professional level. There are no subscription fees involved, and the app can be purchased outright for $19.99. In my opinion, well worth it. Half the price of what VideoLeap is offering, and that's at the discounted rate. There are also other apps too that maybe not as advanced as VideoLeap, but are openly rebelling against the subscription model. For example, VideoRama now offers all of its features to all of its pro users without any subscription fees. And so you're going to begin to see these types of offerings from other developers. So I will keep an eye out for them and then begin to compare and contrast what your options are. VideoLeap is definitely following the subscription model for all of its apps, and they definitely offer apps that are very well designed. But as a consumer, you're going to have to be the one to decide what you want to pay for and what you want to use. My name is Tim Brown. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of my Apple Podcast. Check me out next time.